it has evolved. I mean, we've had a really fun week this week. This is teasing ahead to later in the season, but, later on we're going to sit down upstairs with Justin Tuck, obviously former New York Giant, won 2 Super Bowls. He now works, he's a managing director at Goldman Sachs,
I know.
which is
Incredible.
amazing. But we've had a crazy last couple days because and you're going to love this one, Carol, because I know you're a fan of this person. The first was Erica Badon, who is former Erica Nardini. She ran Barstool. She had some incredible stories. And then yesterday, Robin Arzon from Peloton, who you and I interviewed way back in the day.
Ago, yeah.
I mean, Alex, that was unbelievable.
I mean, she's a force of nature. And what a story, right? To be a litigator lawyer, one of the top firms in New York. And then around 2011 says, you know what, I'm going to do a radical pivot. And she cold emails Peloton, gets the job. And one of the most things, I mean, there's so much to admire, but the fact they've been to the moon with their stock, right, over $30 billion market cap, and now is, obviously a lot less than that. And she has stuck it through. And we asked her about it, and she gave a fantastic answer. That's my tease for
Yeah.
for
The
Robin.
other thing that she said, which is so funny. So this is how, I'm going to tell a little bit behind the scenes
Inside
story.
baseball?
Inside baseball about the deal. And this is how I know that I think the show is really working is we literally sent each other voice memos this morning saying, like independent of each other, saying, my favorite part of the interview with Robin Arzon was this thing that she said. And you'll have to wait to listen to what it is. But that was kind of a cool moment where we basically, in this 45-minute conversation, there was one thing that we were both like, I'm going to use that in my day-to-day life. And I do think one of the things that we've started to achieve with this show is like sort of a level of intimacy with our guests. They tend to open up. We had in this most recent season, we had Bill Belichick on, a pretty rare business side interview. I think he told us stuff that, he hadn't really talked about before and really talked about his approach to coaching, what it's like to sort of take this new job in college sports. And so, I mean, we're having a ton of fun. I mean, this is fun.
Another fun one, timely-wise, because you mentioned time, is Mark Shapiro's. The day they rang the bell and they took TKO public. And he gave us some fascinating stories going back to the Bob Iger days and what he was doing at ESPN and how he was a rising star. And now he's obviously the president of TKO and Endeavor. So many great stories. Yeah. And now people are starting to reach out to us and saying, hey, can we be a guest?
That's what I was going to ask, Alex. I mean, now that it is the 3rd season, you're not necessarily having to knock down doors the way you guys did just 2 or 3 years ago in order to do this. How are you thinking differently about the conversations and who you want on the program?
Well, I think Jason reminded me yesterday that we've done around 50 shows. Wow. So we're getting some reps. We're getting out there. We're dropping one every week, which is the consistency is key in podcasting and anything, just like your job here. And I think we're thinking bigger. And we're thinking, how do we think outside the box? How do we storytell? But I think Robin from Peloton was like the epitome of everything, right? You have a lawyer who's now in fitness, who's now, one of the most influential fitness people in sports in the country.
Well, and I think, to build on what Alex is saying, I think one of the key things that we think about with our show and honestly, infuses everything we're doing today with Power Players is, from the beginning, and this is why I think, Alex really bought into our shared vision of this is we're talking about the intersection of business, sports, and culture. And I think, there's a fair amount that's being done around business and sports. It's undeniable what's happening there. But I think, and we just literally talked about this on a panel that I moderated with Tom Garfinkel from the Dolphins and Mike Arrighetti, the CEO of Aries, this amazing cultural impact that sports has on everybody's lives at a time when we're so polarized, we're so divided. Alex is, very involved on the board of University of Miami. University of Miami beating Notre Dame at Hard Rock Stadium last weekend was an unbelievable moment, like in the broad culture. I mean, it really was incredible.
Yeah, and it had a huge number, around 13 million people.
Right.
And that is a huge number, right? And it's one of these things, especially after COVID, I think, and Tom talked about it in your last panel, that people still want to come together in a stadium. To have 75,000 people cheering on. Remember the old history, like bringing the old days back for the University of Miami. Convicts versus Catholics, right? It's pretty awesome. And the fact that we won, I'm very, very happy about that.
We're speaking, of course, with Alex Rodriguez, chairman and CEO of A-Rod Corp. Also, Bloomberg Originals chief correspondent Jason Kelly, talking about the newest season of The Deal and more. Is that culture around sport today, is that a lot different than it was when you played?
Oh, there's no question about it. I mean, I think Michael Arrighetti was talking about 10, 15 years ago, the ownership landscape looked a lot different. A little bit, his words, a little bit more sleepy, and I'm paraphrasing. And the sophistication with the newer owners that have come in, with the ability and the appetite to take risk, while still being disciplined. But, it takes a certain amount of, a cowboy or a bit of a poker player to innovate and keep pushing the envelope and making these assets a moat. But then there's all the businesses around, whether that's a stadium, networks. What the Atlanta Braves have done is incredible. They did $75 million of extra cash flow for the team. I think that's the new model moving forward.
Thank you for mentioning the Braves. That was very nice. But what is
Atlanta person here? We should know for everybody who doesn't know already.
But one thing,
smart co-host.
So smart, so thoughtful. But I'll sort of toss it right back in the sense that I do think, to answer your question, Tim, one of the things that's also changed is in these years that we've been doing this, Alex has become the majority owner of an NBA and a WNBA team, and I do think being able to, we talk a lot about, in our partnership, sort of the roles that we play in the conversations that we have with our guests. And I think Alex's now ability and curiosity and willingness to essentially say to people, whether it's Robin, whether it's Erica, whether it's Ted Leonsis, who's been on our show, whether it's Belichick, to be like, hey, listen, I'm doing something new. We had Sue Bird on our show, WNBA legend. To be able to say, like, listen, I'm doing something new. Help me understand this new job. I mean, I do think that sort of unlocks something.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
For sure, and especially, like, they just handed us the keys about, call it a few months ago. And it's fun for us to think we just brought in a new CEO in Matthew Caldwell, who was formerly at the Florida Panthers, worked for my great friend, mentor, Vinny Viola, who's won 2 titles back-to-back. No, it's just really the other thing that has changed, Jason, I think, is now we've brought institutional capital into the game. And if you think about the 92 professional sports team, when you include the 4 major leagues, NBA, NFL, NHL, and Major League Baseball, that changes the whole landscape of the ability to find some liquidity, put that money to work, and keep growing these assets.
I think there was always the worry, though, and I pose this question to both of you, of a lot of money coming in, gambling coming in, what that does to the sport. Has it, let me start with you, Alex, has it changed sports overall, all this money in?
There's no question. There's a new data point that came out that blowout games in the fourth quarter in the NFL were doing better numbers in the second and first quarter. And that's because of fantasy football. And the interest level that is no longer about the score.
Yeah.
The NFL has found another hook to, like if they needed one, to bring in more fan base and become even stickier. I thought that was fascinating because most people in the fourth quarter, if it's a blowout, they're done.
Net good?
Yeah.
What depends?
It's complicated.
It is complicated. Look, and there's regulations, and you have to obviously put guardrails around everything.
Right.
But I mean,
or money in college sports.
So I think that's the one. So that's the
different.
one that I think is probably. It was funny. I was talking with the athletic director of Ohio State, who was here on a panel earlier.
And we have Dartmouth's athletic director joining us in just a few.
And what I said to him, which he did not disagree with, is what has happened in the business of college sports over the past 5 years is the most radical thing that has happened in any sport in the past 100 to 200 years. I mean, there's no question.
Yeah.
Because the entire business model has changed. The amount of money coming in has changed. I mean, even the idea. So let's use University of Miami. University of Miami, the reason they won that game, almost, I mean, not completely, but a huge part of it is because the former quarterback of the University of Georgia was done playing at Georgia. He was headed for the NFL, got a call from the University of Miami and said, hey, bro, hey, Carson Beck, we'll pay you $4 million to come to University of Miami, which was probably 4x what he would have made his first season in the NFL if he got drafted. And then he goes down, plays in front of a bigger crowd, in front of in a higher profile game, higher viewership, than he would have gotten if he had even been on the field in the NFL. That's a radical different. Like, that's complete. That
it's a game changer.
It's
is it a good one, though?
Game changer.
Is it like, or who
so,
knows?
I mean, listen, I think if it depends. If you're an investor, there is certainly a lot of investing to be done around it. I think to Alex's point about guardrails, there need to be new guardrails. One of the things the athletic director said was, like, we are literally making this up as we go along, which is crazy. I mean, like, none of us can do that in our jobs. And it's like, I try, as you know, but like we can't actually do it.
Yeah, I mean, imagine any league without a collective bargaining agreement, right?
Yes.
Without a union, without
Right.
what is the exchange? If you sign a player for 5 years guaranteed, he can't just go on to the opponent over there, the rival. So I think, especially with the young kids, I mean, look, I have a junior, a girl who's a junior, and a young lady that's a junior at the University of Michigan, and I have a senior this year in high school, and I couldn't imagine one of my girls getting $5, $6, $7 million today, and they're not equipped for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing, and to your point, Bill Belichick on our show said this is actually harder than coaching the NFL because it's free agency all the time.
All the time.
So the kids can move around.
Yeah.
And they will move around.
Yeah, we
were
were talking about the
talking-
portal with
we
a
were
colleague.
talking about it with a colleague here.
Yeah.
His son can just log in to a portal and go somewhere else.
And
Yep.
he is going to move somewhere else.
And if you look at some of the great coaches that we've lost from these institutions, whether you go to you go to Saban, Nick Saban,
Yeah.
you go to Coach K, you go to Coach Wright from Villanova, a tough name for my Georgetown buddy here to hear.
My God.
But I think one of the reasons they're leaving is if you scream at a kid, he's going, I'm out. I'm going to Georgetown or I'm going to University of Miami. And that wasn't the case back then.
So what does this do to the pipeline going into the pros right now?
I think college football becomes NFL junior.
Yeah.
And I think it really just becomes an extension, and so you start to what it could do is you could have more, in some form or fashion, Carson Becks who opt not to go to the pros because they're going to make several $1 million, playing in college for an extra year, and then I mean, big time football is going to just get bigger and bigger, and college is going to be a part of that.
So Alex, I'll ask you the same question I was asking you about sports gambling. Net, is this a good thing?
It's interesting, right? Because I still remember the days with Pete Rose, right? I think the answer we don't know yet. I think depending.
But for college sports,
for college sports. I'm not sure about that, but I will tell you one correlation. If just to back up what Jason was saying is, you've never had companies stay private longer, whether it's Stripe or whether it's many examples. I think you can have an example of players staying in college longer because they can develop. They can go to the University of Miami for a senior for $4 million. The kid over at Michigan, the quarterback, $12.5 million.
It's amazing.
So it's a different world.
Yeah.
So 8 years in college and still no MD degree.
Ouch!
Wow.
But they got a lot more money.
Yeah, they got a lot.
We
And
got
no student loans.
We just got a few seconds left here. Got a dream guest that you still guys are like, if they're listening? Real quick.
Roger Federer.
Oh, good one. Roger Goodell.
Oh, good one.
All right.
Couple of Rogers. Listen up.
So Rogers, if you're listening,
Roger
we're
that.
ready.